all these people.
Fantastic. Good evening, everybody. It's so good to see you all here on a Wednesday, and we're here to talk about money. I think that's something that all of us can relate to, and I'm very excited. My name is Chulu Chansa, and my co-host, Muma Sinkala. We are here to welcome you and just say thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for this important conversation. The topic for today is African financial freedom and generational wealth. And we are excited that we have such an amazing panel to come and talk us through these topics, which are very relevant to us and, how, we can secure our future. So I'd just like to introduce the panelists, and then I will explain a few ground rules of how this is going to work. But really welcome and thank you so, so much for being here. All right. So I'll start with Celestina. And sorry if I butcher any names. I really do apologize. So Celestina Agekum, she is from, sorry, I'm like totally lost myself. She is from Ghana originally, and she's currently based in the United States. She has a master's degree in international development and social change from Clark University, which is in Massachusetts. And she is also the founder of Gen Wealth Financial Services. So she is a financial advisor. And when you hear her personal story of how she managed to get out of debt and how she has a passion for helping people of African descent to also reach good financial standing, it's very inspirational. And I am very happy that she's here to join us. So thank you, Celestina, for being here. We have Luis Avero, and he is a qualified financial advisor, and he's been in this business for over 7 years. He is based in the UK, and he is of Angolan and Ugandan descent. And he provides specialist bespoke financial planning and protection advice to individuals, families, businesses all throughout the UK. And hopefully we can convince him to become international by the end of this call. So, Luis, thank you very much for being here. And I should add as well, he has a holistic view of, looking at your finances because he does have a background in law as well. So, yeah, thank you, Luis, for being here.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here. Excited to be here, in fact.
Yeah. Great. We also have Maureen Nalubiato, and she is from Zambia. She is a wealth consultant and the director of Devere Zambia. She is an investment and pension specialist, professional wealth. She's skilled in professional wealth management, advice. She gives advice on international markets and investing. She also gives advice on general savings tips, and she has a Facebook group for women. So I hope you guys are going to go over there and join. And it is called Financial Fitness Corner for Divas. Come on now. So I'll say that again. Financial Fitness Corner for Divas. Please go and find it on Facebook and join and be in a community where you can hold each other accountable to your finances and really just, get the money straight. All right. And our final panelist hasn't yet joined us, but you're welcome. Our final panelist hasn't yet joined us, but he will join us as soon as he's able. His name is Chilumba Bwalia, and he is Zambian, based in Zambia. And Chilumba has a wide range of experiences. He's worked in international companies, such as Fortune 500 companies. And currently, he is an entrepreneur, and he is also a consultant, a financial advisor, and he does leadership training as well. So when you see him do come in, please know that that is Chilumba Bwalia, and we're also very, very excited that he is able to join us. So thank you so much to the panelists again. Cannot thank you enough. I mean, you know, you are professional financial advisors and people pay you to do this, but you are here to at least impart some knowledge into our viewers and ourselves as the hosts. So just a few ground rules, please. Keep your mics on mute. That will help with the sound quality. We do post these videos. It's being recorded, so we post them on our YouTube channel afterwards, so you'll have access to it afterwards. It will be edited, and maybe a few things would not all be there. So it's great that you're here live. But just to help us with the quality of the video, please do keep your mics on mute. Please have as much fun as you want in the chat, so you can throw in questions. Myself and Muma, my co-host, we will be monitoring the chat, and we will be incorporating the questions as we go in, and hopefully we can get to a Q&A. Now, as you registered, you were asked to give suggestions for questions, and what we noticed was there was some groups of questions that did form. So we have divided the questions into 3 sections. The first section is going to be about debt elimination. The second section will be about building monetary wealth, and the third questions will be around generational wealth. So I hope that is clear. And please also know that it is okay to be in disagreement on any topic, but I just ask that you are respectful in the way that you address your fellow audience or the panelists. So it's fine whether you don't agree with a certain right, we've got Chilumba coming in right now. So it's fine if you do not agree with a certain point, but please express yourself respectfully. And those are the ground rules. So thank you. Okay, so Chilumba, good evening. You just come in right on time. Welcome. Okay. I hope his sound will come on eventually. So let's get started. All right. Are you ready, panelists?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Fantastic. Okay, so the first topic we are tackling is debt elimination. And would like to find out from you, and I think I should also mention, because our audience is from around the world, I can see people already that are in the States, some people are in, you can also drop in the chat where you are. So I see some people are in the UK, some are on the continent. So whether you're in Zambia, Kenya, Uganda, I've seen quite a number of places of where people are. So if you're able to speak in context to being on the continent and then also being in the diaspora, I think that will also help our audience members when answering questions. So why do people find themselves in debt? And that's in the context of living in the diaspora or on the continent. Who would like to take that first?
Sure.
Yeah, I think if it's okay with the rest of the panelists, I'm more than happy to kind of jump in here. I think one of the basic things or reasons why people find themselves in debt is because we live beyond our means, right? We see something that we want to purchase, it's beyond what we have coming in, our income and affordability, but we still want to purchase it, right? And I guess if you start to look at this generation now, more so nowadays than we used to be in the past, a lot more people are living in credit, right? There's credit for everything. I was online and I was trying to get a shirt from Boohoo or whatever it is, and even Boohoo is offering credit to purchase some of their items, right? Boohoo is an internet, for those who are not aware, it's an internet sort of clothing site. So you can purchase credit for almost everything. And the reason why it's easily accessible, that's one of the traps that people kind of fall into, because, you know, essentially what they have doesn't amount to what they, you know, what they can afford. And that's where the disbalance sort of happens. And then obviously the trap then leads to something greater and something bigger. Whether it's a psychology of the way that the advertisement companies are working, because they're clearly selling things which they know people can't afford right away, but they provide other opportunities and avenues for those people to purchase it, but then lock them in with debt. And that's how debt quickly and very aggressively can accumulate.
Thank you. Maureen?
Yeah, thanks, Louis, for bringing that point. I think it was one of the first points I was going to bring up, because whether you are on the continent or you are in the diaspora, we cannot ignore the fact that people live beyond their means. Credit debt is not so much common here in Africa, or especially Zambia, but you get to find that people will get debt for things like consumption. You know, they'll get debt for a lot of things. So those are some of the things that contribute to people getting into debt. Some of the things also are things like poor money management, because people don't have financial literacy. So if you're not financially educated, you get sold on a lot of investment options that you actually do not even understand how they work. And then in the end, people get into things like Ponzi schemes and they get more debt. So if you are financially literate, you will know that it's not every investment that is for you. Some people will borrow money to get into a business which doesn't give them interest in the short term. So those are some of the things that cannot be ignored. And that's some of the reasons that people actually get into debt. So instead of getting profits from what you've invested, so you spend another 5 years paying back a loan that you had no business getting in the first place. So financial literacy is very key in why people actually get into major debt.
Absolutely. I will agree with both Maureen and Louis. And one of the contexts that I've been thinking about when it comes to debt for Africans and people in the African diaspora is the shiny object syndrome, right? So anything shiny you want to buy, or I see my friend with the new shoes, I want to buy it. I don't have the money, but I will try and make things work, right? That's one of the things. So it really comes down to self-discipline, right? And knowing that, okay, I can't afford it now, but maybe I can afford it later. Can I wait? Can I save up to it? Or I can't afford it and I don't need it. Do you need it or do you want it? You know, so if you make those distinctions, it really is very easy for you to maneuver when it comes to your money or your money management or your savings or anything of that sort. The one key thing I've seen, especially in African communities, and I generalize, but let's go with Ghana, and I'm sure you say it's seen across the continent, is the societal and the cultural pressure we have to do certain things. For example, weddings. I cannot tell you how much people are spending on weddings, but that I can understand to some degree. Now let's come to funerals. That has become a show, you know, a fashion show. And so many things are going on in that category of funerals. It has to be the biggest funeral. It has to be, you know, this kind of coffin, and it has to be, you have to serve 3 different meals, you know, and 5 different drinks, just so someone can say they really buried this person well, right? So it takes away the sentiment of celebration and takes it to another level. So those cultural and societal pressures within the African community of, you know, topping and the next person for the event, or, you know, I did it better than you did, that also leads us into a lot of debt. So you have young couples going into marriages as Africans or anyone with debt because you wanted it to be the best wedding, right? Or burying your loved one and you're in debt because you wanted it to be the best funeral talked about for the next 5 years. that is a mindset we need to change, and the pressure that comes with it. I think we need to when someone does it less, or when we talk about it and normalize it more people start to understand we don't need to spend all that money for 2 hours and then forget about it, or you know. So those are the things I think lands us in debt.
Absolutely. If I can just sort of chime in with one more thing as well. I think we're going to get a chance to speak about, you know, how we can build generational wealth and how we can build wealth. But another thing as well with debt, you know, a lot of families have generational debt, right? So whenever, you know, one of the, you know, the parent passes away and they have a mortgage, or they have a property that perhaps they're still paying into, or, you know, I don't know exactly how the economics work in Africa, but generally speaking, if they owe something, you know, they owe someone, an establishment, an institution money, you know, when that person passes away, that debt still applies. You know, the institution is still going to go and want to get after the debt, and generally speaking, it gets passed on to the next of kin, and that you know, that tends to happen a lot. A lot of this debt, sometimes, you know, speaking to one of my clients and some of the people I interact with, you know, they've lost someone and they're going through a really, really terrible time, right? But what they forget behind all of that, the person had a life as well. They had credit cards, right? They had a mortgage, right? They had things that they were paying into. Just because they've gone, you know, the governments or the institutions are not going to turn around and say, oh, this person's not here, so let's delete what they owe us. They're going to still go after them, right? And generally speaking, like I said, it gets passed on to the family, gets passed on to the next of kin. So that's one thing as well, that you know, tends to build debt, and a substantial amount of debt for people and for families.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had a really good point when Celestina brought up the funeral. Sorry, I got cut off. That's a very good point, Celestina, because you see, when it goes back to my point on financial literacy, a lot of people do not know that you can take up a funeral policy for your close family members. So as a result, in an African culture, if somebody close to me dies, then all the bills are on me. So I'm the one who's lost somebody, and I have to cover the funeral expenses for everybody. And it's an African culture. So as a result, after the funeral, the breadwinner dies, and then you remain in debt because you've gone all out to spend so much over a funeral for somebody that has died. So some of the things that we have actually learned from this COVID-19 is that we don't need to have a huge funeral. We don't need to have a huge wedding. You know, just something minimal, something that is manageable within your resources, so that you don't have to borrow, you don't have to get married, and then afterwards, instead of starting a family, you are paying back debt. So I guess those are some of the things that we really need to talk about and register in our mindsets.
Just one more thing, and Fulu. Gloria mentioned in the chat, generational debt essentially is what we are all talking about when it's passed down from one person to the next. So we have generational wealth, which we all want. We have generational debt, but we don't want. So, yeah.
Thank you. Chilumba, do you have anything to add? Cannot hear you. Let me see if I can unmute you. Oh, I think he dropped off. Okay. When he comes back, we'll see if he can continue. I think so far, a lot of also what you're talking about is mindset. Would anybody want to clarify what, you know, when people throw that term out, mindset, what exactly that means?
So
Celestina?
for me, yes, when it comes to the mindset, it also comes down to breaking down cycles and myths that we've been brought up with. We have to unlearn quite a lot, right? Let's take for the African community as example. We are brought up on 3 pillars. You share, you give, and then you also loan to someone else. If you're not doing these 3 things to the best of the person's acceptance, or if they are not, if we're not doing it to the degree that someone else is appreciative of, you're not doing it correctly. For example, if you come to me and you say, hey, I want $10,000, and I said, oh, I can only give you 5. Well, you're not doing it right, because I want 10 and you can only give me 5. So the guilt that comes with it, right? So the mindset that we have to come with is, we live in a community that you scratch my back, I scratch yours. For us to grow from that, we have to have very clear boundaries. And a boundary can look like a budget. And if my budget says, I cannot give you $10,000, but I can give you 5, right? And for someone else to come back and say, well, I took care of you when you were a child, and you stayed with me when your mother was away, and you owe me this much, and it has to come from us to really unlearn those burdens and say, I understand that. I thank you for taking care of me. However, my boundary says I cannot go over. And if I do, I'm going to be put in a situation that I can't help myself or other people. So the mindset is very, very hard, because once you cross over, you see that other things start to fall in place. And you have to teach people how to behave towards you. You really do. You have to set those and be very clear and repeat it. And it gets super, super hard and draining. I'm going through it, with extended family or close friends. Everyone goes through it. It's just the way we're brought up. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. But then when you travel and you learn new things, I can't scratch your back all the time. Or if you're scratching mine, I can't scratch yours immediately. I'll scratch it later, right? So that part, it takes a lot of you as a person sitting down and saying, these are my boundaries. And if someone crosses it, what am I going to do? And if they cross it again, what are the actions? Once you have that in place, it's very easy for you to teach people and train people how to behave towards you, and even ask you for things, and to say, hey, that was a little bit over. You are my uncle and you're 5-10 years older, but it's a boundary you're crossing, and let's just talk about it.
Can I just add to what Celestina has said? I agree with you. It's just a line. I just wanted to say, I agree with what you're saying about boundaries. There's a saying that I saw that says something like, setting boundaries is also a form of self-respect. And it is really, you're respecting who you are, where you want to go as well, and where you're coming from, and honoring that when you stick to the boundaries that you set. So, yeah.
Yeah. I also just wanted to add on the issue of mindset. I think it's also important for one to manage their own expectations in life, because there's a lot of unnecessary debt that people carry on because of their circles, because of their surroundings. Just because your friend is building, you don't know how they got that money. You don't know where they are. So I feel like sometimes there's a lot of pressure from society, from friends, because this one is driving an expensive car, so you feel left out. So as a result, a lot of people take on debt to try and catch up, to everybody else, just so that they can show that they're doing something. I mean, it's good to build, but if it's not your time, wait for your time to come. Some people will be doing projects, but they don't even really tell you exactly how they got that money. So as a result, you end up going to the bank, or you get into, unnecessary debt. So I feel in terms of mindset, it's important for us to, one, manage our expectations, understand where you are in your life, and don't compare your chapter to somebody else, because not everybody's honest with what they are doing. They will be hustling, doing 10 different things, and you just have one source of income and you want to catch up with them. Unfortunately, we are not yet there where people have a platform like this where, you're sharing knowledge. Some people will do things privately and just show you, the roof level. They haven't showed you the foundation and how they got there. So it's very key for one to know where they are in life and know that it's not my time yet. I will get there. Even if it takes me 40 years, I'll get there. My time will come. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Louise?
Sorry, it was mute. I think, what the ladies touched on just now kind of hit the nail on the head. Because, this is this tends to be one of the main reasons why, people find themselves in that position, because, a lifestyle that they want to have, or a lifestyle that society is kind of leading them down to have, will put them in a position where they just can't keep up with that. One of the ways that, I find it useful to do, like everyone was kind of speaking, is to understand where you are right now, is to understand what trajectory you're going in with regards to your finances, and to build a goal and a vision towards achieving that, right? It has to be realistic. We have to understand, this is the position that I'm in. These are the cards that have been dealt. What can I do to maximize it, right? Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in a position where we're overspending, we're in debt, and the life that we're trying to live is going to be on sort of for a short period of time, because we're going to suffer the consequences later on. And a lot of people suffer the consequences of making that decision hastily, right? Later on in life, they get to a position where, their net worth is little to nothing, because the debts that they have, the liability that they've accumulated is way beyond what they have coming in as an income, right? So they find themselves in a position where they can't retire properly. They have to continue working into a later age. And I think the mentality is one of the biggest things that our community needs to overcome. Understanding that if we change our mentality, if we change the way that we think, the way that we speak, the boundaries that we have, not just for ourselves, but for our families as well. I think that's a big thing, especially for our community, because family for us is precious. I'm not saying other communities don't appreciate family as much, but for our community, family is everything, right? The neighbor next door, can discipline our children because they're that close to us. If they see our children doing something wrong, they can discipline them, and they have the right to discipline them, because we're a village, we're together, right? But then at the same time, those boundaries have to happen. Every single person here, I'm assuming, has been in a situation where, your auntie or your uncle, the scenario that was given, would turn around and say, I raised you, yeah, I cleaned for you, yeah, I did this for you, and they expect you to give them something. They expect you when you go to visit them. And sometimes it'll almost be a disappointment when you go to their house and you haven't brought a gift. It'll almost be like a disappointment. You haven't brought me money, or you haven't sent me money. I haven't spoken to you a long time. You haven't sent me money. What's going on? And I think that mentality needs to change for people to understand that in order for there to be growth, in order for us to really, really grow, we have to set those boundaries, because we can't help people if we're not able to help ourselves. First, we need to establish that strength, that stability financially for ourselves, and that will put us in a much better position to then leverage that and help other people.
Thank you. Chilumba, do you have something to add towards the mindset? Okay, he says his internet is really bad. There we go. Hi, can see you.
Fantastic. So, amazing. Fantastic. So, mindset, big thing. I've been on the road, but I'm excited to join. Keep on cutting and joining. So, mindset is a big thing. Let me start just by saying debt elimination and building monetary wealth is really about the thoughts that you can harness and control. But in saying that, I just want to be sure that everybody understands that never build your business, your life, your hustle, your expectations on circumstances you can't control. There you have it. That's the beginning point. And there is no other way to begin to harness and control your future rather than to appreciate that you've got limited to no control over so many variables in the marketplace. That means begin to live within your means. The mindset of keeping up with the Joneses is what got us into trouble in the first place. When we saw Ghana get independence, we all felt it was the right question. Is what you're seeing around, is it really the way to go? Begin to question yourself. And what you cannot control should not make a platform for you to build your life and sustenance on. Coming to the question of we raised you, and therefore you owe us. We gave birth to you, owe us. That's a wrong mentality to begin with. And I give personal examples of that. I tell my own siblings, number one, the fact that we're born together, I'm a believer in God, thank God we're together, but I don't owe me. So begin to create a mindset, first of all, within your family, next within your community. If you are responsible for people in a company or anything related to that, begin to create a mentality that speaks to the values you espouse and say it plainly. Do not count what you can't control as that which is going to change and pivot your life. So be very sure to say it as it is. And I'll give a practical example. One of my young sisters has been married once, divorced once, has 2 children, and just got accepted to go into university. And she wants money to go to college. And she's asking me, are you not a warrior? That's my surname. And I'm saying to her, unless you can live by the values that I'm trying to espouse, you are not entitled to my money by all means. And I don't owe you that. I owe you an education for the sake of your children so that they have a better future, but I don't owe you sponsorship. So we've got to cultivate this mentality that puts a demand on people working for themselves, cultivating a mentality that suggests that, look, we've got to put a stop on this. And here is the last statement. Let's not be afraid to lose the direction because we've decided to do something that the whole herd has decided not to. That does mean if we were cows heading into one direction, we can decide to go another way and lose the herd and let it go in a different way. And that does begin with all of us sitting on this call. So I hope I've joined point 1, 2, 3, and 4 and can have a better connection.
Thank you. Sorry, our time is actually flying by really quickly, but I just wanted to ask the panelists, we've heard of good debt and bad debt. Is there such a thing? And, is there such a thing as good debt? If you could just expand on that for us, because I think people get credit cards and say, well, I'm going to use it because it's good debt, So what comment would you have on that?
If I can come in, yeah, absolutely. There is such a thing as good debt and bad debt. Good debt, in essence, is debt that you get, in the simplest term, if I get a debt today, knowing very well that it will pay me back in the future, that is good debt. So examples that I can give there is, I get a loan from the bank because I want to pursue a degree, because I know that when I pursue a degree or a master's, I'm going to get a better job, I'm going to get paid more, okay? Or you get a loan or a mortgage, for instance, because you know that when you get that mortgage, you stop paying rentals, or you build a house, you're going to get rentals. Bad debt is, you get debt for consumption purposes. I love life, so I get debt because I want to go on a holiday in December, because I haven't saved the whole year and everybody else is going on a holiday and I get a debt. So that's not paying me back in the future. I'm just going to spend the next 2-3 years paying back that debt. Or I get, Kalova because I need to buy food or I need to pay school fees. You cannot get a loan to pay school fees for your children. That is being a bad parent, because it means that you have not saved for your children. So there is bad debt and there is good debt. I hope I've answered that question.
Maureen, thank you very much. I'm excited that there's somebody from the industry And when Chulu allows you and me, we'll do coffee. But let me say this to add on to what you've said. I think there is a huge contribution of what I would call irresponsible debt. Before we even talk about good and bad, let's talk about responsibility. Let's put it in context. What in the beginning, why are you borrowing? So before we can even say, hey, good debt, bad debt, let's just rewind ourselves. Is the intention for borrowing in the right place that you want to get a return? Because if that is the idea, then we can qualify responsibility attached to a positive return on investment, for example. So then we must show people and teach people what it means to borrow and for what reasons. We can actually do come up with a glossary list of items and say, you can borrow for this, and please never borrow for this. And I want to be very categorical on this matter because we get in debt just for the sake of it. Okay, so in terms of good debt, Maureen already said it. But in qualifying good debt, I also want to encourage everybody that's listening that be careful that you're not digging a pit for yourself. Building a house might be good debt, but have you taken a calculated risk and understood how many months is it going to take for me to see a return, for example? How long am I going to take to pay this loan? What are the potential changes in the market in terms of interest rates? How stable is the economy within which I am borrowing? You know, you need to really interrogate yourself. And if possible, go to people like Maureen, because they want to borrow you money. I know they will also be a bit more honest to qualify or you don't. And then a lot of what we call bad debt, my fellow Africans, beloved countrymen and women, just irresponsibility. Also a responsibility. The aspect of knowledge being an equalizer becomes important in this sense, the financial literacy that we talked about. And you'll be shocked that actually in terms of statistics, you would have a throughput of about 60% financial literacy access, but less than 3% use the knowledge that they've gathered around financial instruments. And that's why I started with responsibility versus irresponsibility and our inability to take our own advice.
So let me add on to that and maybe be on the other side. For me, all debt is debt. There's no good and there's no bad. If you owe someone, it's bad debt, right? Let's bring the Christian part to it. Proverbs 6, 4 to 5. It talks about, this is the Bible talking about run from debt like a gazelle running from its hunter. If you've seen a gazelle running, you know how fast it is, right? And the Bible is telling you to run from owing someone or any institution like a gazelle is running for its life. Run as far as you can. So if you find yourself in debt, be it responsibly you're in debt, or you needed the money to build that house, to buy that house, to take care of a family member, right? Sometimes you just have to go into debt in order to dig yourself out. We understand it's life, but do know because you owe someone or an institution, your life is not at peace and you're not at peace. So you have to dig yourself out, right? So we can say good debt and bad debt and we can categorize them like that. But for me, all debt is debt. And when you find yourself in debt and owing someone, you are not able to build as fast generational wealth, if at all, because half of your money is going to paying someone else. So that's what I'll say when it comes to good debt and bad debt, or debt in general. It's debt. You know, you don't want that attached to your name. However, if you find yourself in that, or you take those responsible or calculated risks, as Chilumba has said and Maureen are saying, then you have to have a plan to get yourself out. A plan, again, I'll always come back to a budget. A plan is like a budget. A plan is financial literacy. A plan also is using what you know, which is the financial literacy, right? And being financially capable. Those are two different things, right? So you have the knowledge. Now, how do you apply the knowledge? And I think that's what Chumba is saying. And the word for that is financial capability. I have the financial literacy. Am I capable to use it? Which means, do you have the self-efficacy? Do you have the awareness? Do you have the confidence? Do you have the ability, you know, do you have the attitude to actually use what you've done or read to apply it to your life? And look at the bank loans, the interest rates, you know, look at your income. Can I pay in the next 2 days, 20 days, 10 years? Or is this actually going to put me in debt in the next 50 years? And is it going to be passed on as generational debt? So when you have the financial literacy, you have to be financially capable to apply what you've learned, right? My friend Benta, she's online, she put it like this. She said, it's like learning how to read and using what you've read. You know how to do the ABCs. Now put those words together, those letters together, and they should form a sentence, right? Basically, that's what financial literacy is and financial capability is. Now, when you have those two together, then you are financially included. You have access to all these financial services, products. You know what it's about, you're confident to use it, and the products suddenly are available to you, so you access it with ease. Now, if you're not in these three, first you start with financial literacy. If you're not starting with financial literacy, you're always going to have what we can call bad debts. And it's a snowball. It just grows and grows and grows. And guess what? You have to sadly pass it on to someone who is not born yet and who resents you for it for the rest of your life. So that's what I wanted to add, just making sure you are in one of those three categories, but definitely finding the education you need when it comes to your finances and understanding the terminologies. And if you don't know, ask someone. Google is great. Google is a wonderful place. YouTube is wonderful. Your friend is wonderful. Ask, hey, have you heard of this? Can you help me? Explain this to me. That's how you learn, right? And you make a mistake and you learn again. So definitely we owe it to ourselves to dig ourselves out of those illiterate mindsets, right? We can't be spoon-fed all the time.
I hope
Thank
I can
you,
go
Louise.
on 1 second.
No, Louise. We are on a time limit. We got a lot to cover. Louise, would you like to join the conversation?
Yeah, I think that you know, rightly so. Like she mentioned, debt is debt. However way you want to look at it, it's what you do with the debt and whether or not it helps you achieve your goals. If you can avoid debt, you know, that's the best way of doing it. But you know, a lot of the time, there's people who perhaps are in a position and they can't avoid the pathway for them to achieve their goals without debt. So then debt becomes useful because it is then a leverage for you to kind of get to that position. However, like you were saying, you have to have a plan, a strategy behind being able to get yourself out of that position and put yourself back in the black. Whether it be having a financial plan that takes into account the market conditions, takes into account the interest rates, like we mentioned, takes into account your affordability, your income. And bearing in mind, circumstances always change. Life always happens. A lot of the time, the plans that we have don't always go to plan. Maybe perhaps you've decided for yourself that you want to buy a property. You've put down as little deposit as you can. That basically means you have a lot, you know, of the mortgage left to pay. Maybe perhaps you've decided, actually, I just want to go interest rate only. I don't want to have a capital repayment mortgage. Just want to focus on interest rate only, and then I pay the lump sum towards the end. But you never know what can happen during the interim period. You know, you could lose a job. Pandemic can happen. You know, COVID-19, COVID 2021 can happen, right? You never know what can happen, what can take place. So I think considering all of these things, there is a risk behind being in debt, and you calculate and weigh whether or not that risk that you're willing to take is worth you achieving those goals. And that has to be measured. I think it's always useful to seek and sit down with a financial advisor when considering these things, just because there's always a lot more, maybe perhaps other steps that we haven't perused that can help us get to that same objectives. Maybe perhaps it just takes a bit of patience. Maybe perhaps it just takes a bit of alternative funding, right? There's so many different ways for us to achieve that funding or achieve those funds, you know, without necessarily going into debt. right? There's so many ways that you can crowdfund to achieve certain things. If it's a business that you want to start, you know, there's so many people there who are willing to invest in that business and not necessarily put yourself in debt. So there's so many things you can consider. But absolutely, everything, I think everyone sort of hit the nail on the head. But the key for me is a debt is debt. You know, it's an instrument, whether you use it for good, whether you use it for bad, it remains exactly the same. It just depends on how we use it.
All right. Thank you. Can I just suggest, I'm seeing a few questions. Panelists, if you see a question which you feel you can answer, please go ahead and type the answer in the comments so as we can try and push along with the questions. I just have one more question on under debt elimination. And please try and be brief because we do have to move on. My timekeeper is on my case right now. Okay. So the question is, what practical steps can individuals take to eliminate debt? You know, I've heard you saying, you know, the words like budgets, make a plan, financial advisor, but what if, you know, somebody came to you and said, I'm in debt, what can you say to them that is a practical step that they can take to eliminate their debt? Thank you.
I'll jump. Yeah. Louis, go ahead.
Yeah, I was probably going to say the same thing, but you've been speaking from the start of this call and you're mentioning budget. I think, you know, that has to be the foundation of where you start when it comes to debt. You just need to know what's coming in and what's going out. And if you can reduce as much as you can of what you have going out, it helps the situation a lot more. You know, just simplify it. I think the debt process has to be as simplified as possible, because if you don't start there, then you don't know exactly how high the mountain is. You don't know how deep or how steep that hill is. You need to understand the position that you're in, and that comes with understanding what you have going in and what you have coming out. And then, you know, the next thing is how do you then increase what you have coming in? Because if you're going to eliminate the debt, the ultimate way to do it is to make sure you have a lot more coming in than going out. And then peruse the different venues and things that you have to increase the money that you have coming in. But also, with the money that you have already, make it grow. You know, there's so many ways that you can multiply the funds that you have or increase the funds that you have in different ways. You know, the markets is one of the things that perhaps people don't understand quite yet. It can be technical. But, you know, you have things like, you know, having a plan, an investment plan that will allow the money that you have, whether it be little, whether maybe perhaps you have an extra disposable income of a certain amount, you know, how then can I multiply that? How can I make my money work for me? You know, investing it in the market, you know, maybe doing something else that can give you a better return and increase the money that you have coming in, which will then give you a much, much bigger return on disposable income for you then to help deal with your debt. But the only simplest way, you know, with dealing with debt, you know, just keeping it simple and keeping it short, is understanding what you have coming in and what you have going out, and then starting from there.
Yeah. So for instance, say you have debt, right? You owe some institution or someone $10,000. I know I keep using $10,000. Clearly, I need $10,000. So you owe money. You have a budget, you make a budget. Now, creating a budget can be very daunting at times, but it's like what Louis said, you know what's coming in, you know what's going out, you know how much you owe, you divide into 3 categories, right? So when I'm a financial coach, and so what I do is I help people when it comes to budgets. I'm super excited with it, about it. And I have a financial, a budget book, and I sit with it for like an hour every day, right? And that's my budget book. And when I look at my budget, and my budget is telling me I'm bringing in, let's say, $2,000 a month, but my expenses are $1,800 a month. That's a lot of expenses. So what remains in my pocket is $200. So I have to wait for the next paycheck to get more money, right? And that's what budget helps you do. It helps you categorize what is happening to your money. Another thing you can do to eliminate debt, you know, the 2 people do the avalanche, which means you're putting a lot of your money, throwing it at your debt to get rid of it. So if your monthly payment for the debt is $50 a month, you are going to say, well, I'm trying to eliminate this debt by 2021. So I'm going to pay more than $50. I'm going to pay $200. That is you aggressively getting rid of your debt. So you increase your monthly payments so you can get rid of your debt quickly. Some people are not able to do that. So what they do is they do the snowball. That's the general term. which is, okay, it's $50 a month. I can do, an additional $10 slowly. You have a plan and you say by 2022, I'm going to finish, and you slowly, get rid of your debt. But without having a budget, you will not know how much extra money, which also could be called disposable income, that you have to throw at your debt and get rid of it. And what disposable income is you take your income, your salary, right? Every month, let's say you get $2,000, right? And you take away 1,800, which is your expenses. What is left is disposable income. So income minus expenses equal disposable income, right? Now, if you do your monthly calculations and your disposable income, what you get to, flaunt around with is at a 0 or -5, you're in trouble. That means, you don't want any negative or a minus next to that number. You want it to be plus, right? You want it to be 0 and above. 0 means you have a 0 budget. That means every penny or every dollar has a job, right? If you're able to do a budget like that, I commend you. I still sometimes can't find where $50 vanished to in my budget. But 0 budget, right, means every penny and every dollar has a title. It knows where it's going. So you just have to start with your budget and then choose if you can do the snowball or the avalanche, right? Can you go intensely into eliminating debt? I think Dave Ramsey calls it the gazelle intensity, right? And that means, like the gazelle, you're running out of debt. Like you are just as far as possible. And some people just want to just, I'll just model towards debt repayment. That's okay too. So those are the ways that you can eliminate debt. Choose one or the other, but before you choose snowball or avalanche, you have to have a budget and sit down with yourself and say, I'm earning this amount of money and my expenses are this much. And okay, so I need more money. What Luis was saying, you have to, maybe create more income, start a business, work part-time, work on the weekends. So many things that can bring you extra money so you can get out of debt and enjoy your life.
If I can also come in, I think the first thing, yes, it's good to budget, have a plan, but first things first, in order to eliminate debt, you first need to stop taking on more debt. I've come across a lot of people who will borrow money from John to pay Peter, and it keeps on going on and on. You first of all, you have a loan with the bank, you are owing your friend, so you're borrowing money. Every month you're creating debt. So I feel the first step should be look at your debt level and stop taking on more debt. And that's when you can create a plan. And that plan should be within the income that comes in. So first of all, it's important to understand how much money actually comes in. You'll be amazed how many people don't know what they spend every month. When I'm doing a financial analysis with prospective clients, it's detailed. I want to know how much do you get, how much do you spend, even on talk time. How much are you buying for on credit? How much are you paying for the internet? How much are you paying for, entertainment? You need to know every month. And once you understand what kind of income you have, and then you make a plan to say, even if the arrangement was for me to pay, $50 every month, if I can only afford to pay $30, I should be able to be honest and say, look, I'd like to clear this debt. This is how much I can afford. Because everybody that you're owing, be it the bank, what they're interested in is you paying back than you taking long to pay that amount. So if I come to you and say, Celestina, I know that the arrangement was for me to be paying you $1,000, but right now I can only afford to pay you $200. It's better you get something than nothing. You understand? So everybody needs to understand what is going out. Like both Luis and Celestina have said, it's very critical. And in us saying that you should have, additional income, sometimes it doesn't even need to be a business. I can just come out today and say, what do I have in my closet that I don't need? Let me sell off some things. I have gone to places where there's a garage sale and it's on a weekend and people will tell me, but you're a director. Why do you have to sell stuff and stand in the sun every day? Because I like nice things. I like to have a good life. So I like to have extra income. So I will go because I've got a lot of things in my house that I don't need. And I've embedded that culture into my children. So sometimes you find that they've got shoes they don't need, them, small shoes, small clothes, sell them off. And these days we are so privileged to have social media platform. Right now I can create a page, advertise for free, even on my WhatsApp status, advertise for free and say, I'm selling these shoes. And by tomorrow, I'm going to have $200 that I didn't have yesterday. So it's not really about having a business plan and sitting down and thinking, what can I do to have an income? Sometimes it's just about, what are you good at? I love cooking. I love baking. I can bake muffins and go and sell to my workmates and have more money than I didn't have and use that money to clear off some debt. So sometimes, yes, it's good if you have a business plan. If you can start a business, that is fantastic. But it's not always the right way. It's not always the only way, rather, to go. Sometimes the solution lies within your home. Sometimes it's just a matter of saying, you know what? The car I'm driving is expensive. I'm spending too much fuel. So let me downgrade. Or the neighborhood where I'm staying is too much. Let me downgrade and go into a one room. Even if it takes me a year, at least you have a peaceful mind, a peaceful sleep, and nobody's calling you to pay back their money, So let me give somebody else a chance to talk. I feel like this topic it can go on and on.
It can. Chilumba, please close us out and try to be brief so that we can move on.
Hello, why are you giving me conditions? I still love you. That is so.
Because you're my brother.
There's a powerful quote from a guy called Bill Balance. He says, when a man or woman is in debt, someone else has an advantage. For you to get out of debt, you need to buy back your advantage. Summarizing what everybody has said, here are the 3 points I think you should take care of. Number one, get disciplined.
Did we lose him or just me?
Yeah,
get
I was
disciplined.
checking.
Number two,
Okay.
be honest with yourself about what you're doing. Irrational about debt. You're just like everybody else. So
Chilumba, you're going in and out. Okay, I think he's back on.
it will keep on misbehaving, but let's just proceed.
Okay, so we heard be disciplined and be rational about what you have and what your means are. What is the third one?
Be accountable for your own financial independence, for your own financial freedom.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that concludes our conversation on debt elimination.